Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. So it's T-minus less than 24 hours until Rocket Lab earnings. So this is a video that is my earnings preview, so you definitely need to watch it before the actual Rocket Lab earnings. I'm going to try to keep it very fast and to the point. I'm going to go into what my predictions are for earnings and what I think is going to happen to the stock price on earnings. So I'm going to go into what would make the stock go up on earnings, what would make the stock go down on earnings, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about my predictions about the stock price in this next quarter and what will affect that. So it's going to be a very cool video. I just want to give a quick shout out to the 17 channel members that help support this channel. You guys are amazing. And if you want to join them and become a channel member, it's in the description box below. You can find the link there and sign up there. And in that case, thank you very much. So Rocket Lab, we have a very interesting setup for Rocket Lab because we had a very crazy rally, which was pretty much almost straight up from the bottom of 350 or 340 something all the way to almost $6, which is a monster rally in like 2.5 months. Obviously, the stock needs to rest a little bit, so we knew that we were going to get a pullback. Now, what is interesting is that normally it's not good when you go into earnings with the stock price very high. So if the earnings would have been here, I would have been very, very nervous because, you know, topping off an 80% rally, that pretty much means that you have to beat on everything and you have to come up with exceptional numbers and, raise your guidance and forecast and yada, yada, yada. So it would have been a very daunting task. However, we had a monster crash because of all this volatility, and it's quite a comfortable setup going into earnings. So I think that there's a much higher chance that we would rally up from earnings. Just because, when you fall, this is like a 30% fall into earnings, it kind of resets expectations. Now, this earnings is a little bit weird because I don't think it's going to be about the numbers that they report on this earnings. It's more going to be about the future, but let's go quickly over the numbers. So this is going to be their first quarter of them having over $100 million of revenue. And they projected 77 to 81 million of space systems revenue. And they projected 28 to 29 million from their launch business with 4 launches that they were predicting. I have a model here, which you get access to when you become a channel member. And I'm actually forecasting 31 million in launch revenue. And that's because they have been saying that their launches are 8 million a pop. And if you go 8 million times 4 launches, it's $32 million. And the 28 million that they projected, if you divide it back by 4, it's only $7 million a launch. And they just don't have that pricing. So I think that they were sandbagging a little bit. Maybe they were thinking that they guide for 3.5 launches, and then if they lose one, then it's not such a big miss, and if they manage to actually pull off 4, then it's a nice beat. So I increased the target there. I'm going to be very curious what they come in with. And on space systems, I gave them like a sort of a middle guidance that they came in with. And this would be a $110 million quarter, which would be a cool 77% revenue increase. 77 freaking percent revenue increase, guys. I mean, that's just something. 18% quarter over quarter increase in revenue. I'm going to be very interested. This is their adjusted EBITDA margin. So this is when you back out the stock-based compensation from the numbers. And you can see that the margins were horrendous, like minus 89%. And you can see that the margins keep improving, and we're going towards that zero line, which would make Rocket Lab not GAAP profitable yet, but cash flow positive, basically, which would be very big news for Rocket Lab investors. But you can clearly see we're not there yet. And this is that graph. This is their EBITDA margin, and you can see that we came from very deep minus and we're inching closer to being EBITDA positive. So I'm going to be very curious about that number. Now, on Neutron, I think that this is going to be one of the where most of the focus is going to be. So we did get kind of a hot fire, but it was the test of the how did Peter Beck word it? He said that it was like on very low speed, and then they're going to crank up the speed from now. So if they would manage to pull off a full hot fire test and show the video of that on earnings, that would really, I don't know if it would make the stock go up, but that would be a very, very positive sign for the stock. And by the way, it's very interesting because this was their, oh, sorry, I'm just showing you the Neutron timeline. This is their previous earnings report. And it was so interesting because at the previous earnings day, this is when they released these pictures of the Archimedes engine being produced, and then they tweeted this picture that it's like sitting on the test stand. And at that time we were like, okay, in 2 weeks time we're gonna have the hot fire. And now we're like 3 months later and we still haven't gotten a hot fire. I do think that this is because we ourselves are not rocket engineers and we somehow misunderstood, and maybe also Rocket Lab didn't communicate it clearly enough how much work needs to go into a hot fire. And it's not just as simple as, you know, you go there with a lighter and you open the valves and then hot fire. So there's a lot more to this. It's going to be very interesting to get data about this on earnings. But so we're here to listen about the stock price. So I think that what's going to determine what happens to Rocket Lab stock is not the past, it's what they are guiding for in the future. So for the stock to go up, this is what I think needs to happen. So they need to announce a new contract, which might happen on the 8th of August. There is an SDA contract announcement that is, we don't know the exact size, but it's estimated to be bigger than the one that they got in last December. Now, sometimes the SDA can be late on their contract announcements. It can be a few days to a few weeks, but they're normally not later than that. But the announcement should come tomorrow. If there is 4 contenders on that, and Rocket Lab is one of them, so they have a 25% chance of winning that contract, that would be a massive, massive rally tomorrow if that comes through. They could announce a hot fire video, or they could show a hot fire video where they have done the full hot fire test, and that would be very significant. To me, I don't know how Wall Street would react to it because they're very numbers oriented, but for the smart investor, then you understand that, okay, the test campaign is done. They are fully certain about how the Archimedes engine works, and they learned how to operate it. And now we have a direct line of sight to first Neutron launch is, you know, next summer, 2025 summer. And that means that they can start signing freaking Neutron contracts, and they can seriously talk to customers. And I'm 100% that them announcing the Neutron contracts signed, that is going to make the stock fly up. I don't know how the market will react to just the hot fire test, because it's not the contract announcements yet. You know, like maybe it's still too much uncertainty. But as a smart investor, I'm very happy with my Rocket Lab position. But if I was a very smart investor and didn't have enough, and the stock price doesn't shoot up on the hot fire news, I would treat it as a very good buying opportunity. Now, another thing that they could announce on this earnings is that they are in serious talks with certain customers about multiple Neutron launches. I think that that would also send the stock price to the moon, because we know that Rocket Lab is not planning on giving discounts on the contracts. So we know that those would be juicy contracts. Number 2 is there has been a lot of uncertainty, not again by us, but more like the Wall Street analysts, about the demand for Neutron and if, you know, they can compete with SpaceX. and all the other companies that are coming, that are up and coming. And one thing that would, drive a silver stick through the heart of this bear point is them having contracts or announcing that they are in very, very serious talks, and a contract is imminent. I think that would be super beneficial for the stock. Now, there is a bonus one, which I don't know how the stock would react to, and that is if they announce which company they want to acquire. Now, remember that this company that they're trying to acquire will give us clues on what is the space infrastructure that they're trying to do. And if this is a smaller acquisition, meaning that they have gotten about 300 million to do this acquisition, if they use 100 million on this acquisition, then it means that they have 200 million over for whatever they wanted, and they can do more acquisition, or we are just safer as investors in the company because there's just more cash in the bank. And I think that that would be a very beneficial news. Now, if they acquire something that is like 300 million, then we know that they're using all the cash that they have gotten. And if there is neutron delays, then their cash is potentially going to go very tight, which might signal a new capital raise from them in the future. So I think that that would be a negative for the stock. This is just how I'm thinking about it. So if we have an acquisition that the market likes, and I think that for the market to like it, it has to be like, leaving a little bit of money left over from the 300 million that they got. And then the market is going to like it. Now, what would crash the stock in earnings? Like, what would have to happen on earnings for the stock to crash? If they announce fewer launches, so they originally said that there's going to be 22 launches this year, and we really believe this, but somehow the launches seem to be reshuffled and reshuffled and reshuffled, and we had 4 launches in Q1, 4 launches in Q2, and we are just now getting confirmation of the second launch this quarter. But the question is, how many launches are they going to do this quarter? Because we are at 8. If they only, let's say that they would guide for 3 launches this quarter, that would be 11. That means that we are only halfway through to the 22 target by the end of Q3. And I think that the market would treat it as very problematic, even though when we had Peter back in an interview with us, he clearly said that this is what customers are paying for. These delays are not because of Rocket Lab. These are, the customers delaying it, and this is part of the service that Rocket Lab offers. And Rocket Lab gets paid 90% of the money before launch. So financially, this is no problem for Rocket Lab, but in the bookkeeping, they only recognize the launch once the rocket is up in space, even though they have already gotten 90% of the money. So keep that in mind, but I think that Wall Street would treat that news very negatively. If they announce a new delay, I highly doubt that this is likely. But if they somehow would push out Neutron to the end of 2025, or if they make a comment that it could go into 2026, obviously Peter is going to say that this is a rocket program and we're aiming for mid 2025. But there's different ways how you can be uncertain about your date. And I think that if he would bring up that it could go into 2026 and 50% chance that it does, that would be very negative for the stock. Another thing, I think that this is highly unlikely. The backlog not growing, that's another thing that I think the street would react badly to. And that is something that will be my key focus for the earnings, because Adam Spice said that they're planning to get the backlog up to 2 billion. They're at 1 billion and they have 2 more quarters to do it. So the only way for them to reach that is they need to announce new contracts and what's happening with that. So if the backlog would decrease, I think that would be not viewed positively by the market. And the last thing that would crash the stock is if they somehow give a bad guidance on the launch and on space systems, because they just finished with the 2 spacecraft that is going to go to Mars on the Blue Origin, Blue Glenn rocket, we hope, cross the fingers. They have finished and delivered the MDA satellites, so I believe that they're going to work on the SDA satellites. That's the contract that they got awarded in December. And if there is a gap that they, that they are not able to pick the work back up at the same pace, and the space systems is going to go negative for a quarter or two because of that, that would be viewed very, very negatively. But again, my money is on that we're going to have a very good earnings. I'm really looking forward to earnings. And as for the future of Rocket Lab, if we look at the stock price, we are in this nasty channel since 2020. Oh my God, now you see how cheap I am. I don't have a TradingView subscription. And why does this not want to go away? There we go. And now my face got big. Today is not my best filming day. Here we go. So we have been in this nasty channel since 2022, almost 2 years now. And the bottom seems to be at 350 or something like this. And we have two tops. The top, one of the tops is around 760 or 750, and the other one is at 6, and the one that is at 6 is a massive resistance. So if we break through that, we're probably going to 8, but currently we're in the middle of this freaking channel. So that means that this is pure technical analysis. We can go down and revisit the 350s. I think it's very unlikely. I think we're going to turn around here, and we should be able to finally break through this freaking 6 line and stay above there for quite some time. But I think that this is going to depend on the macro, because there seems to be a lot of fears about a coming recession and the consumer not doing good. And we might have a very interesting situation, because just so you know, Rocket Lab is not a consumer-facing company. And if the US goes into, we know that rate cuts are coming, which is going to be super beneficial for Rocket Lab. And if the stock sells off because there is a consumer reception, that is the definition of a pure buying opportunity. I don't know if the market is going to be retarded and go back to 350. It honestly can happen. But if it does, it is the definition of a buying opportunity, because Rocket Lab has nada to do with consumers. The only thing Rocket Lab has to consumers is their freaking merch store, where they sell hats and t-shirts. And I know you guys have been buying up their t-shirts. I'm in some Palantir chats group where some folks are ordering like 10, 15 t-shirts. But I promise you that does not make Rocket Lab a consumer-facing company. So what I hope is going to happen is that we're going to get rate cuts, and the stock is going to break over 6. And very soon in the next quarter, we're going to get neutron contract announcements, which might make the stock go to 8 and be between 8 and 10. And then we see where we go from there. So let me know in the comments, guys, what is it that you're looking forward to most on earnings? Do you think the stock is going to go up or down? And yeah, we have an interview coming with Peter the day after earnings. So tomorrow's earnings, I'm going to be live streaming it with Matt Money. Then interview with Peter, and the channel members, if you want me to ask something from Peter back, this is my saying thank you to you. Put it in the comments what you want me to ask. I can't guarantee that I can ask it, but there is some very interesting questions already coming in. And yeah, it's an exciting couple of days. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.